Great.
Thank
You all set?
you. Good evening, and now being 7:02 on Wednesday, April 5th of 2023, we'll begin this meeting of the Committee on Ordinance and Rules. We are appearing via Zoom, so all votes are required to be via roll call. If you'd like to speak at any point during one of the subjects tonight, you can use the raise hand function. There's not that many of us. You can also just wave your camera and I'm sure I'll see you. Clerk Semino, can we have a roll call to begin the meeting?
Certainly. Councilor Ringus,
Here.
Councilor Hume,
Here.
Councilor Flaherty,
Here.
Councilor Ryan,
Here.
all present.
Thank you, Clerk Semino. There are no minutes to approve this evening, so we're right into old business. 22037, President Baraka, tree ordinance or taking up any action relative thereto. Do I have a motion to take off the table order 22037?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilor Hume, a second by Councilor Ryan. Clerk Semino, can I have a roll call vote?
Councilor Ringus,
Aye.
Councilor Hume,
Aye.
Councilor Flaherty.
Aye.
Councilor Ryan,
Aye.
4 in favor, 0 opposed.
And that is unanimous to take 22037 off of the table. Before we get into sort of the meat of this matter, I'd just like to welcome specifically to this subject, Council President Meredith Baraka. This was something that she has proposed and she'll be talking a little bit to us tonight. Crystal Huff from the Town Solicitor's Office, as well as from the DPW, Jim Arsenault and Ben Hulkey. With that said, Councilor Baraka, if you'd like to sort of go over, I know something that's near and dear to your heart.
Thank you so much, Chairman Ringus, and thank you to the committee members for having me back again. And before I delve in, I want to say sincerely thank you to the mayor and his staff, specifically Crystal Huff, DPW Director Jim Arsenault, and Assistant DPW Directors Ben Hulk and John Thompson, who's not here today, but I have been working with this team for more than a year now, and sincere thanks for sticking with me through this process. I have learned a ton, and I hope that over the course of the past year, with some of the feedback from this committee when we last met in June, that what you have before you tonight is an even better proposal than where we started back in 2022. So the overarching goal of this ordinance is to strengthen Massachusetts state law, Chapter 87, which is the Massachusetts tree protection law, and really to provide Braintree residents in particular with a transparent and timely notification process for public tree removal, and also a way to create a formal mechanism to replace trees when they do need to be removed, whether it's through replanting, or as I'm happy to get into in the case of private developers, payment into a tree replacement fund. So again, the key tenets, and I'm also happy to talk about, I know I sent along some of the changes from last year to this year, but the key tenets of the provision applies to public trees along the public ways and on town-owned land. So places like French's Common, the schools grounds. However, it does not apply to land within the Conservation Commission's jurisdiction. It also, except in the case of an emergency, which are defined in the ordinance, public notification and a public hearing are required before trees come down, again, to let residents in the area, as well as the district councilor, know that trees, sometimes there are good reasons for trees to be removed, but the idea here is to let residents know ahead of time the reasons why they're being removed and the plan to replace them, if they can be replaced. And then those replacement trees would be planted within 18 months, as close in proximity to where they were removed as possible. So I will pause there. Again, that's the high level overview, and happy to answer any questions. And again, want to thank the staff of the mayor's office for their assistance, their technical and on the ground expertise in crafting the final form.
Thank you, President Borica, for working on this. Any members of Ordinance and Rules have any questions, for President Borica? Councilor Ryan?
So, thank you, Council Ringus. So I've looked at this and it's well written, and my question is, so did this, where did this come from? Did we take some document that it was in place in another community and tailor it to Braintree, or where did this come from? I'm wondering.
Oh, okay. Did you want to answer that, Solicitor
Mr.
Hoff?
Chair?
I will go to Solicitor Huff first, and then I'll go back to Council Borica.
Thank you, Chair Ringus. So this was an organically created ordinance. With the first iteration, Councilor President Borica had brought, sort of the rough draft, which, she'd from what I understand, and I'm not going to speak for her, but from what I understand, that she compiled from, similarly situated communities in Massachusetts. And then through the course of our many meetings and conversations we have, we drafted it into something that is really, I would say, is organic and kind of a one-off, for Braintree, that it's similar in many respects to all the other towns, tree protection ordinances. They all have very similar components to them, but this one is truly unique to Braintree.
Thank you, Solicitor Huff. Council Borica, President Borica, did you want to?
I was just going to lead in and thank you, Crystal, for Solicitor Huff for the technical. Yeah, so this began with looking at not only the Massachusetts state law, but also tree protection ordinances in municipalities, mostly in Metro Boston. And then again, with the professional help of the legal staff, making sure that it, was in harmony with state law and also would work for our community.
Thank you. Councilor Ryan, anything further?
No, I just wanted to kind of have an understanding of that this was really modeled after other communities that had already gone through this process. I'm a big believer in, we don't have to reinvent the wheel, and I see it all the time in my job that, it's good to be able to share information, and I'm glad that the council president has submitted this for us. I think it's time for us to take some action on this. And I think I just wanted to kind of get the flavor of where it came from and how it was drafted. And I think I like that that the president looked at other communities around us and took what works for them and is putting it into this document for the town of Braintree. I think that it's something that could be very useful for us. I've seen numerous times in my experience as a town councilor where issues of trees have come up. For me personally, I live on Conrad Street in Braintree, and we had Elm Lawn Road in my neighborhood, and it was a tree-lined thoroughfare, so to speak. It had a lot of tree canopy on it, and it was very distinctive as one of those roads in Braintree that had many trees on it. And then when the road got done over, not only the roadway got done over, the biggest complaint I got from people was the trees on the sidewalks and how the sidewalks were all buckled and very dangerous, and people were tripping and having accidents on the sidewalk. And then when the trees were all gone, the whole character of the roadway was changed. And a lot of people, some of the same people that were complaining to me about tripping on the sidewalk were now complaining that the trees were gone. So it's I think this could be very useful if that type of situation comes up again, where we could have, a little more planning, so to speak, with staff and have conversations in advance and be able to refer to this this ordinance and hopefully use it in a way where everyone could be heard and we can kind of have a roadmap and a game plan going into a situation like that. So I fully support this ordinance. I want to thank the town council president for taking the time to put this together. And as I said, I will be supporting it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor Ryan. Councilor Flaherty has your hand raised.
Oh, thank you. So I appreciate that one of the things about this ordinance is that it defines which kinds of trees should be used to replace trees that are removed for whatever reason. And my question is, and I can see that there's a tree replacement fund and a way for people to pay into that if they choose. But my question is, as far as budgeting for the trees is concerned, before the tree, is it anticipated that the trees will be mostly paid for through this tree replacement fund over time? Or is it anticipated that sometimes the town will pay for the trees and sometimes when there's money in the fund that will be used depending on whether there is money in the fund? I mean, my questions really are about how the town will handle the cost and what we should expect it to be and where in the budget that money will be found.
Councilor Baraka, did you want to take that?
Yep, I'm happy to. That's a great question, Counselor Flaherty. And I know that the solicitor and I went around with this quite a bit. So there's a couple of there's a little bit of a backstory to the fund component. The first is that in the original proposal back in 2022, this applied both to the town and to clearing land for whatever reason. And the idea there was that primarily the developers would be paying into the tree fund, the tree replacement fund, based on a formula which is very standard, as Councilor Ryan asked, across municipalities. It's based on inches per diameter breast height around, and it's up to, the statute is up to $500 per inch. So over the course of the year, and one of the first things we discussed with the town staff is to break apart the tree protection for developers. That's going to become a separate amendment to the zoning bylaws to be held as part of the site plan review process. And this is only really applying primarily to the town. So that's a little bit of a long-winded setup to say, initially, my expectation is that we're going to have to, it's going to take some time to build up this tree replacement fund because there's what will need to be forthcoming is we need to set up a revolving fund for the tree replacement fund. And then part two is to get into the site plan review process of, again, a formal mechanism to care for and or replace trees. So where the tree money is coming from today and in the short term, I think that will have to be, like everything else, determined by the mayor's office. And I know he has, and Ben, correct me if I'm wrong, I think he has a plan for about 75 trees this season. So a long-winded answer is it will take time to build up the tree replacement fund. But in the near term, the goal here is to make sure that residents and the district councilors are notified of trees coming down. And then when that fund has sufficient money in it, the tree committee will begin to oversee where those should be replanted if they can't be in the same spot.
Okay, well, I think that this is a wonderful plan. I hear often about trees in town. People want more of them. People want them to be in the right places. And sometimes people want them to be removed, but they're important to our community for a whole bevy of reasons. And I'm happy to support this. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Flaherty. Councilor Hume.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Question, so somebody, I see the members, 7 members, right? Somebody from the electric light board will be a member. Has there been discussions with Bell because they have the tree replacement program that they do? Will this be in conjunction with them or completely separate? How's that gonna work?
Yep, that's a great question. So one of my first stops on my roadshow for trees was with Beld, because vegetation management is one of the key components of electric reliability. So I wanted to make sure that Beld was involved in the discussions from the beginning of this process. And that their tree replacement or their tree planting program is will be separate from this, but having a committee, Beld commissioner on the committee will really facilitate dialogue between Beld's tree trimming, Beld's tree replacement. Beld also has a program where if you feel you have a hazard tree in your yard, they will pay to actually take it down. And so the goal here is with having Beld involved in the tree committee that to really help with that two-way communication between what's going on town property versus what's happening with Beld's vegetation program.
Okay. And if this is approved, you know, through the council, it's gonna, however it happens in committee tonight. So it's a committee, the mayor's gonna appoint them. Those committees are gonna follow the charter and come back to the council for the approval. Is that correct?
I believe so. Solicitor Huff, can you help with that one?
I'll turn it over to Solicitor Huff.
Hi, thank you very much. So yes, that's how it would just be like any other board or committee under the charter. It would be the same process that they would be appointed by the mayor and approved by the council. That's correct.
All right, and one other, thank you. One other question, just wanted to clarify that. One other question on the terms. So there's staggered terms, which I think is great.
Mhm.
Who's going to determine what member gets what term to start with? Because there's not going to be an election. These are appointments.
That's correct. You know, I think that's something that we haven't 100% discussed, but I think that's something that we can work out too when it gets a little closer. This is frequently these staggered first term. The staggered first term is very common when you have the initial appointment of a board, and that's how you get people. So when their subsequent 3-year term expires, it doesn't all happen at the same time. It comes up staggered.
No, exactly.
So,
that's why
yeah.
I said I agree with that. Once the members are chosen, who's determining who gets the 3 years, who gets the 2 years, who gets the 1 year?
You know, that's a great question. Yeah, that's a great question, and I think that you know, it might be something we could do it even alphabetical. You know, something as simple as that, because you know, clearly, if people are wish to be reappointed, then they would be able to get the follow up, you know, 3-year term. You know, people can be. There's no limit to how often people can be appointed and how many terms that they can serve.
Okay.
So.
All right. No, great. Thank you.
But that's a great question.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
So.
And Madam President, I know you spent a lot of time on this and very thorough, so great work on this, and I will be supporting this tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Hume. Anything further from any of the other councilors? Councilor Ryan, I saw you touch the screen.
Well, if it's appropriate, I'd like to make a motion for our committee to make a favorable recommendation for 22037 tree ordinance to the full council. So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilor Ryan. I have a second by Councilor Hume. Clerk Semina, can we have a roll call vote?
Counselor Ringus,
Aye.
Counselor Hume,
Aye.
Counselor Flaherty,
Aye.
Counselor Ryan.
Aye.
That's 4 in favor, 0 opposed.
And that is unanimous. Thank you very much. I just wanted to thank Jim Arsenault for being, I know he was here. I don't see him on the screen right now. Ben Elke for being here as well. And thank you to Solicitor Huff for her guidance on this. President Baraka, obviously you put a lot of work into this. I know it took a little bit of time. I think it's kind of maybe serendipitous. Is that a good word here? That we're passing this in April, and we are Earth Day will be
Arbor
April
Day.
22nd, and Arbor Day will be April 28th. So we'll hopefully get this passed to the next council meeting and right before Arbor Day. So congratulations and thank you for all your work on this.
Thank you very much to the committee members, and thank you again to Director Arsenal, Assistant Director Hulk, and Solicitor Huff, because I could not have done this without all of your help. So thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to our next matter, and I just have to flip through this motion because it's a couple pages long. I would go to new business. I believe that, yep, there she is. Councilor Maglio is here. New business 00723. Councilor Maglio, LGBTQ and additional Pride ordinance or take up any action relative thereto. Present tonight on this matter is District 3 Councilor Elizabeth Maglio, who is the author of this ordinance, as well as, again, Town Solicitor Crystal Huff. So thank you to both of you for being here tonight. Councilor Maglio, I would initially turn it over to you to sort of give us an update on what you've been working on and where it stands right now.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And also thank you to Crystal Huff for taking a look at this and giving some feedback in terms of making sure that it meets the legal vetting process. I really appreciate that. This idea stems from the fact that last year for Pride, Braintree actually raised its first Pride flag in recognition, awareness and support and advocacy for LGBTQ plus members of our community. And it was well received, well embraced. It definitely representation matters and symbolism counts, and being able to have that take place every year without having to depend on whether there's a counselor who will kick off this process, or if there's a mayor who is friendly to it, and rather just making this something that we do as a matter of just recognizing people's basic civil and human rights, is where this idea came from. And I looked at a lot of other communities and their Pride ordinances and their Pride language, and came up with something that would fit us and our needs, and then sent it through. And Solicitor Huff has been able to make some recommendations on it. And the timing is great because Pride is coming up again this June, as it will every year.
Thank you, Councilor Maglio. Did anyone have any questions? Actually, no, before I turn to the councilors, if we don't mind, I'll actually turn to Solicitor Huff first. So first off, thank you. I had asked you to sort of expedite this one. I know you have a lot on your plate, a lot to go through. So as Councilor Maglio stated, obviously Pride is coming up in June, and this is the ones I wanted to make sure that we got into place if possible before Pride Month itself. So I know that you did a legal review of this. Two small sort of items that just had to be addressed. Can you talk about those real quick, and then I'll open it up to councilors' questions.
Yes, of course. Thank you, Chair Ringus. So in reviewing the Pride ordinance, there were just some minor textual changes. We had to, I recommended that reference to the mayor's office be struck because of the separation of powers enshrined in the charter. And also just a minor addition of clarifying language in the, pull it up here. In one of the sentences, we added, support efforts to ensure the protection of rights and freedoms of LGBTQ plus residents. And it's just for clarity. We don't want to set ourselves up where we've made a representation that we're going to go, fight on the national scale that the town of Braintree on behalf of LGBTQ rights. So we just want to be, just careful there that the efforts that we're supporting are, on the town level. And then I also made just a comment there that if the council wishes to create a committee to oversee this, they have the authority to do so if that's something the council would like to do. So.
Thank you very much. So, and then when you're talking just briefly,
Mhm.
the reference to the mayor's office, that's in sort of like the beginning of the second paragraph where it says
Yeah.
through the mayor's office. You're just asking if that be struck.
Yep, absolutely.
Thank you.
And then there's a second reference to the mayor's office as well, and there, I believe, and that those be struck. And oh, here we go. Here's my draft. No, I'm not quite as organized at home as I am at work.
Oh, I see where it is. It's to say
Yeah.
it's the immediate ending that sentence. Once again, it
Yep.
says through the mayor's office. Once again, we would just strike that.
Yep.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for your work on this. And I do once again appreciate you sort of pushing us ahead of some of the other work. It means a lot.
Yeah. Absolutely. And you're very welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. I would open that up to councilors for any questions for Councilor Maglio or Solicitor Huff. And I see that Councilor Flaherty has her hand raised.
Thank you. So I certainly want Pride to continue to be celebrated in Braintree. I attended the first flag raising ceremony that we had last June, and it was lovely. And I think it is well worth continuing that for residents to see that this is something that is valued and welcomed in Braintree. So having said that, what I want to make sure with this ordinance is that if we set this precedent for, it sounds like we're, requiring that it will be celebrated. If we do that, are we legally in danger of then being required to celebrate other things that I think might be damaging? Like, I think it would be quite damaging to have a group come forward and claim the right to celebrate Hitler's birthday every year. So I want to make sure that possible outcome is that's not going to happen.
Solicitor Huff, do you want to take that one?
Yes, thank you. I was going to ask Chair Rangus if I may. So this particular ordinance doesn't run that risk. If you recall recently what happened in the recent First Amendment case in the city of Boston, where the city of Boston was letting various groups fly flags on one of their flagpoles. That flagpole was sort of deemed to be, open to the public to use for speech, right? That's not what we're doing here. We're creating a very distinct, delineated event that's originated from the government, from the town council, and in those situations, the situation that we have here, it would not be extrapolated where we would have an obligation to provide sort of equal time to some other group. It's a separate situation from the situation that the city of Boston had with their flagpole. And that was one of the things I didn't get into in the legal analysis here, but that was one of the things that I certainly considered when I was reviewing this. And we discussed it actually last year, just for background, in reference to flying the Pride flag, that we weren't going to get into a situation where we'd have to fly any group's flag. But because my analysis turned on the fact that because the people who were choosing to fly the flag is the government, and that makes it keeps it within the realm of government speech, and the town has absolute control over government speech. It does not co-opt our flagpole into a public free speech flagpole.
And I'll just piggyback on that because I had initially read it well, and I would agree with Solicitor Huff's assessment. This isn't something where we're advertising sort of a public space for anyone to use. Something that is sort of being dictated by the town of Braintree and what we're going to fly there. So if we were to, my assessment would be too, if we were to say, hey, anybody, if you want, can come in and use this, then we would open ourselves up to maybe some groups that many of us would deem unfavorable. But by the fact that we're sort of controlling it, we are sort of allowed to do it without sort of the ramifications of letting something get flown that we don't want to get flown.
Well, that is very reassuring. So I will be happy to support this, given that.
Anything further, Council Flaherty?
Nope.
Seeing none, I'll first turn, I believe, Council Ryan had his hand up first.
Thank you. So I just want to say a couple things. I want to thank Councilor Maglio for bringing this forward. Since she got elected, she is certainly stepped up for the things she believes in. And we know what Councilor Maglio thinks is important, because she works for the things that she thinks are important. So I want to commend her for that. Over the years, as a councilor in the town of Braintree, I've attended many of the inclusionary awards ceremonies at Town Hall. I know many of the other councilors have gone to these ceremonies. I know Councilor Hume has been there as well. And it's something that the town of Braintree takes great pride in, that we're an inclusionary community. So I think this is very much in line with that theme. And you know, as a father, my son has autism, and I've seen how important it is for his life to with that perspective of inclusion, and how you know, so I fully support this. I really think it's good. I've been on the council for a long time, as I keep saying, and I think, you know, seeing different ideas and different values that people bring to the council, I think it's I'm very proud of that. So I fully support this.
Thank you, Councilor Ryan.
Thank you.
Councilor Hume.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you to Council Maglio for bringing this forward to us. I support the idea. I'm questioning why this should be an ordinance and maybe not a proclamation, because an ordinance to me, something like rules we live by that we can enforce. You know, I totally agree with the theory of this, but again, I don't know if it's appropriate to be an ordinance, and I'm just looking for clarification on that, I guess.
I think I'll turn to Councilor Maglio first of why you chose this course of action, and then turn to Solicitor Huff to sort of talk about the legalities, if you will. So Councilor Maglio.
Sure. So last year, there was a lot of discussion about how to go about doing the first flag raising. And it kind of kept going around in a circle as to get people to sign on, do a proclamation, get signatures, do a letter. And it just kind of kept rotating. And I was just never really sure, because then there were worries about, well, there was an issue when the flag came up previously, and there just seemed to be a lot of lack of clarity. And so it was actually the mayor who suggested last year that I should do an ordinance or proclamation. And when I told him I was a little confused about the proclamation, and we talked about what would go into each different thing, we said, well, let's get the flag up this year, and in the future I can work on doing an ordinance so that it's not just up to the whims of whoever might be in office at a particular time, and that it's something that actually is a sort of a tenet that we all support and institutionalize in that way.
Thank you, Councilor Maglio. Solicitor Huff, did you want to sort of expound on that a little bit?
Sure. Thank you, Chair Mangus. So basically, you know, I think one of the big differences here is that the ordinance that Councilor Maglio has drafted has some directives in it. You know, that the town will fly the flag. The town will have, you know, educational events as well, and I think that's what really separates it from, you know, a proclamation. You know, you could have a proclamation saying, you know, that we declared June to be Pride Month. But when you have the ordinance and we have these sort of action directives within the ordinance, it really facilitates you know, as Councilor Maglio noted, that these events would actually happen. And also, you know, I think it's difficult to sort of enforce action directives in a proclamation. Whereas, you know, when we have it in an ordinance, it's there.
So let me ask you this. So the directive, who's going to be directing this? Because you're pulling out the information on the mayor's office. So to say the town, it's not, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's not going to be the town because it doesn't, language is being taken out from the mayor's office. And the educational events, like, so is it left up to the council? And then, so I'll let you answer that first.
Sure. I mean, you know, I think from a practical matter for this year, at least, the mayor's office is going to be involved, but from, for the purposes of separation of powers and whatnot, that it's not appropriate to have the mayor's office in there, within the ordinance. It would be up to the council, and that is in part why I suggested that, you know, if the council wanted to consider adding a sentence or two in there, if they wanted to create a Pride Month committee, that's something that the council has authority to do, and that may help facilitate the celebration as well as the educational events.
Yeah, I'm thinking that's maybe more appropriate and not sure, because we have, as mentioned before, there's an inclusion committee like CPAC, the Special Education Parent Advisory Council. That is a group of volunteers. They promote inclusion year round. They had an annual event for inclusion, awards inclusion. There's no ordinance on that. They do have an inclusion flag. There's actually signs as you enter Braintree both ends. And same thing with the New England organ donor. Different, you know, groups supporting a cause and have flags and things like that. So I'm like, again, I'm supportive of the idea. I'm thinking a committee, if that's what's, you know, the direction to be taking, because yeah, I don't know that the ordinance is the way is what we should be doing on this.
Council Magley, do you want to respond?
If I could jump in, yeah, I think that it would be adding the part about the committee, not instead. That this would be an ordinance that would say that there would be a committee for the month to help develop the activities for Pride Month.
So if your plan is to do a committee, I don't think we need the ordinance, because the committee will be part of the council rules, and then the committee will guide the events and whatever that may be. Like, is that your goal there?
Also Maglio, and then I'll go to Solicitor Huff.
If I may,
Sure.
oh, I'm sorry, Councilor
You can go
Magley.
you can go first.
That's okay.
Just expand on the committee idea. You know, when I had suggested the committee idea, I was thinking more of, and again, this is only a practical recommendation, you know, that this is something that's legally permissible, that the council could create a committee. It wouldn't have to be within the council. You could create, you know, a committee like, you know, as set forth in the charter, that you could appoint, you know, 5 people to be on the Pride Committee to organize, you know, the festivities, you know, have something like that occur. So that's something that would be possible if that's something, or, but I think that from a legal perspective, Councilor Maglio's idea of enshrining this in an ordinance is a good idea, in part because of how politically divisive Pride Month can be, and it will ensure that it continues.
So if I can follow up on that, if it's such a good idea, and I'm not disagreeing, why is the mayor not want to be associated with this?
Can't necessarily speak for the mayor. It's not that the mayor doesn't want to be associated with this. It's that the ordinance, when it's originating from the council, it violates the separation of powers.
So under the
And it's in the charter.
Under the
So,
charter, we
yeah.
can't direct the mayor to do anything.
Yes. So,
It's not directing, but if he's on board with this, it can be written so it's both the council and mayor's office.
But I think if I can jump in, I think
Mhm.
this particular mayor, obviously he was part of the June, Mayor Kokoris was part of the June thing. And I assume that as long as he's the mayor, he will continue to be so. But in the future, as distasteful as it might sound, we could have a mayor who is not on board with these type of festivities, and we couldn't via an ordinance direct that mayor to be involved in this. That on point, Solicitor Huff?
yeah, and I would just go one step farther with it, that the separation of powers enshrined in the charter prevents the council from issuing directives to the mayor. And that's
Right, but the language could be changed. So if he was supportive of this and not that we're directing him to, there's been ordinances in the past where they've been worked on with the council in the mayor's office. So why
But
is it?
I think we'd run into the issue we'd run into again is a future mayor might not be on board with that ordinance, and then we'd have.
Yeah, but I don't think, sorry to interrupt you.
No, it's okay.
Go
You can
ahead.
go ahead. Yeah, no, you go.
But if everything we do and vote, we look at the future, like, I don't think we should be looking at future mayors. Like, we're looking at this ordinance today with the mayor who is today, the council who is today. If this becomes a committee on the council, all of us may not be here in the future. We're probably not going to be here in the future. So like, it's who's here today, the mayor that's here today and the council that's here today is who this is going to be working for. If the ordinance is the appropriate means for this, okay, I don't know that it is.
Anything further, Councilor Hume?
No, thank you.
Councilor Ryan for the second time.
Yeah, so after hearing what Councilor Hume said, I wonder if we'd be better off doing a proclamation as well and making a proclamation. I don't think we need to set up another committee on the town council for this. I don't think that's the right thing to do. I think we don't need a committee for this. I think we need to show, that we're an inclusionary town and we support everyone, being included in our community. I think, so I'm kind of wondering if it should be a proclamation as well.
Thank you, Councilor Ryan. Councilor Flaherty for the second time.
Thank you. I think that the importance of inclusion in Braintree is great enough that it merits an ordinance, because I do not want the celebration of Pride to be vulnerable to the political winds as they shift back and forth, which they have and they can still do. And for that reason, the teeth that a ordinance brings to the table on the question is merited. We could issue a proclamation, and that would be our council saying something important about supporting LGBTQ people who live in Braintree and beyond. But then, unless we issue the proclamation every year as a reminder, it doesn't have, they don't have any force. So for those reasons, I think the ordinance is merited, and I'm going to support it.
Thank you, Councilor Flaherty. Any other councilors? So I would just add in that I tend to agree with Councilor Maglio and Councilor Flaherty here, and obviously I'm always very keen on ensuring that we're passing things through ordinance and rules that should indeed be ordinance. I agree. So, and again, I may not have explained it. I may have talked incorrectly when explaining it, but in my own mind, an ordinance has now sort of become a permanent thing until it's rescinded. Whereas a proclamation would have to be reissued every year. So when we're truly looking at trying to protect the rights and show those members of our community that identify as LGBTQ or plus, that that we truly support them and that the town is truly behind them and truly mindful of what they go through or what they have gone through, and that we stand in solidarity and are welcome them as members of our community. As Councilor Ryan said, as we want to be inclusionary, the ordinance makes it a permanently so. A proclamation would have to be reissued every year, so it does become subject to whom composes the 9. I do agree with Solicitor Huff's sort of interpretation that we need to from a legal standpoint only, that we need to remove reference to the mayor's office. And I do think when you're if we were passing a proclamation, I would agree with Councilor Hume that we could work in conjunction with the mayor and sort of, we're going to make a proclamation this year that this is Pride Month or whatever it is that we're proclaiming, in conjunction with the mayor's office. But if we're going to stay to the rules of the charter, again, we do have to kind of look ahead because it is a permanent ordinance and we don't know that every mayor would be supportive of it. So it could become, if a different mayor did not want to be involved in the future, it could become contrary to the charter and thus the ordinance would have some legal issue. So I think by creating an ordinance, it makes it permanent. It's a permanent reminder to those LGBTQ2 residents that we're there behind them. And it doesn't conflict with any sort of tenets of the charter. I do see that Councilor Maglio has raised her hand again. So Councilor Maglio, would you like to respond?
I would, thank you. So I agree with what you just outlined, but also I do want to go back to something that Shannon mentioned around the committee. You know, it wasn't really written with the idea of creating a committee and having it be another committee of the council. It was really done that so that if nothing else, there will be a flag raised, and that's an opportunity for education, for awareness, for as much or as little to happen. I mentioned that the committee, because I'm not opposed to that. I think that would be fine. But there's also a young and growing Braintree Pride organization that started with this last year in the month or two leading up to Pride. And I think it would be wonderful for a community grassroots coalition to work on having major events. Like there is an event being planned this year for Pride, but this is simply getting, you know, these are the basics. And also the reason that I initially went to the mayor for this and wrote in the mayor is because he's the one in charge of the flagpole, is the way that I see it. And so you really can't fly a flag without him. So, and that is my understanding of how it works. So if it was that you had to go to the library and get their permission, that's in my newness to this, that's what I would have written. So, but also I mean, I also know that he doesn't have to put up a flag, but he agreed with it and supported it, and we're planning to do it again this year. So this just makes it something that isn't based on who currently might be here and be amenable to this. It's just something that will happen every year. And I think that's really important because of the message it sends, because of the value we're placing on people, because of the fact that this is about basic human and civil rights. And in terms of inclusion, you know, a lot of what was mentioned has to do with educational issues and other issues. This one simply is about people who exist that we value.
Thank you, Councilor Maglio. Councilor Ryan, your hand is up. I don't know if that just stayed up or if you had another comment.
No, it just stayed up.
Do I have any other comments from any of the councilors? Seeing none, do I have a councilor that would like to make a motion as to this item?
I'll make a motion for a favorable recommendation for this ordinance. I don't have the number in front of me.
Second.
So Council Flaherty has made a motion to refer with a positive recommendation 00723, Council Maglia, LGBTQ plus Pride Month ordinance or take up any action relative there too. I have a second from Councilor Ryan. Clerk Semino, can we have a roll call vote?
Counselor Ringus,
Aye.
Counselor Hume,
Abstain.
Counselor Flaherty,
Aye.
Counselor Ryan,
Aye.
3 in favor, 0 opposed, 1 abstain.
And that will pass to the full council. Thank you, everyone, for your thorough discussion. Obviously, I think we all stand in the same spot that we are supportive of our residents. I think it's just the way that we're sort of getting to there. So thank you, everyone, for the discussion. Thank you, Council Maglia, for your work on this. And again, thank you, Solicitor Huff, for your sort of expediting work on this as well.
Thank you very
Uh,
much.
With that said, we have reached the end of our agenda tonight. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilor Ryan for adjournment. I have a second by Councilor Hume. Clerk Semino can have a roll call vote.
Counselor Ringus,
Aye.
Counselor Hume,
Aye.
Counselor Flaherty,
Aye.
Counselor Ryan.
Aye. Good night,
All in
everybody.
favor to adjourn.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Good night.
night.
Thank you for having me.
Bye-bye.